The 12 most expensive works of contemporary art of the 20th century. Contemporary art is in fashion, and his works have become the most expensive in history. So we have set out to gather the 12 that took the highest sale price of the 20th century. The Great Snowy Mountains. Artwork by Qui Rougeau, from the year 2013. Several panels, 800 centimeters high by 300 centimeters wide, with snow-capped mountains painted with ink on paper, with simple lines, is what this landscape work by the Chinese artist Qui Rougeau collects, and which was sold in Hong Kong in 2016 at a price of $39.5 million, a milestone for Asia. Rougeau's peculiar work seems to have reinvented, in some way, traditional Chinese painting, and he uses the brush or his own fingers interchangeably. Delicate, careful, painstaking in detail, it has become a benchmark in the Chinese contemporary art scene. The Last Supper. Artwork by Zheng Fanji, from the year 2001. We are going to dedicate the last two on our list to Chinese artists, who, due to geography, seem to be more reviled, and yet have authentic masters. This is the case of Zheng Fanji, the undisputed king of the Chinese contemporary art scene. Already from its inception, the work sold for staggering amounts of money, and in 2013, his oil painting titled The Last Supper, and made in 2001, was sold at auction in Hong Kong for the amount of $23.3 million. Setting a new record for a contemporary Asian artwork. The painting refers to Da Vinci's mural with the same name, but in this case, Zheng's characters wear masks that show the falseness of social relationships. Accessories. Artwork by Bryce Marden, from the year 2004 to the year 2007. The minimalist painter, Bryce Marden, painted accessories between 2004 and 2007. It was sold for the amount of $30.9 million. In an auction organized in July 2020, making him the most sought-after living artist of the year 2020, above David Hockney. The Complementos diptych, exhibited at the Matthew Marks Gallery in New York in 2007, is a vibrant example of this artist's later style. No title. Artwork by Jean-Michel Basquiat, from the year 1982. Painted in 1982 by the unique and prematurely disappeared from the art scene, Jean-Michel Basquiat, this untitled work was sold in 2017 in New York for the amount of $110.49 million, until then the auction record for a United States artist. The canvas has dimensions of 183 centimeters high by 173 centimeters wide, and shows a profile in the shape of a skull, in acrylic paint, oily pencil, and aerosol, marking a milestone in the artist with a complicated life, and who he died of an overdose at the age of 27. The work was acquired by the businessman and collector of Japanese art, Yasaka Miyazawa. The Man Who Walks. Artwork by Giacometti, from the year 1961. This enormous and incredible bronze sculpture, made by the Swiss artist Alberto Giacometti in 1961, was auctioned in London in 2010, and for the not inconsiderable price of $104.3 million. A real fortune for the time, and that marked a milestone. Iconic, it is one of the most dynamic and important sculptural pieces of the modern era, which Giacometti made in 1961, 5 years before his death. After 8 minutes of fast and furious bidding battles between 10 buyers, the piece, which belonged to the German bank, Commerzbank, ended up in anonymous hands who were on the phone, the auction house said at the time. The piece belongs to the artist's mature stage and represents the culminating point of the sculpture's experimentation with the human figure. Not in vain, Sartre said of Giacometti's sculptures, they were halfway between being and nothing. Balloon Dog, Orange. Artwork by Jeff Koons, from the year 1994 to the year 2000. Well, yes, we have to include Koons on this list again, because the hypervaluation of his work has broken several schemes, and before the rabbit, there was a dog. The work of art sold at auction in New York for $58.4 million in 2013, and of course, at that time, made history. The work is 3 meters high and is part of a series of 5 sculptures of dogs that seem to be made of balloons, just like Rabbit, and that Koons created between 1994 and 2000. It became so famous that it reached a pier on the roof of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Grand Canal in Venice, or the Palace of Versailles in Paris. Turned into a popular icon and adored by children and adults, the work came to the auction with all these precedents, and of course, it was triumphant. Three Studies of Lucian Freud. Artwork by Francis Bacon, from the year 1969. It is a triptych painted in 1969, and which was auctioned for the amount of $142.4 million in 2013. When looking for figures, we must remember that we are talking about works of contemporary art more expensive, and many are part of a specific catalog. This is what happens with this work, which was auctioned in New York in 2013, and which at that time became one of the 10 most expensive in history, although its price is much higher than others on this list. But keep in mind that the artist was no longer alive when it happened, and that he was European and not American. Clarifications aside, the painting is wonderful, portraying the artist Lucian Freud, friend and artistic rival, with whom he befriended to the point of performing works for each other. The distortion of the forms, the expressive convulsion in the face, and the schematism of everything that is not a human figure characterize these 3 consecutive paintings, the experts say. And we couldn't agree more. Abstract image number 599. Artwork by Gerhard Richter, from the year 1986. Every time I break a record, my reaction is horror. The German painter has never hidden his discomfort with the market, and the speculation that his work suffers, because he assures that every time there is more talk about money and less about art, and there's not much we can do to prevent it. These statements arose from the sale in London, in 2015, of a canvas from his series, Abstract Images, from 1986, which was purchased for the amount of $46 million. A price that the artist himself claims multiplies the original cost by 5,000. And it is that this work of abstract art was carried out with a well-known technique that accumulates layers of paint on canvas and then sweeps them away with a brush. Come on, it even has tutorials on YouTube, in case you want to make one at home. Today, this price sounds almost laughable, taking into account the price of works like those by Koons or Hockney. But it is still considered of the most expensive works of contemporary art in the world. Portrait of an Artist, Pool with 2 Figures. Artwork by David Hockney, from the year 1972. This work was the most expensive sold at auction. It is said of the work that it was one of the great masterpieces of our time, and it must have been, because it was sold, after less than 10 minutes of bidding, a little more than a few years ago, for the amount of $90.3 million. It is an oil painting, made in 1972, and what you see is what counts: a man on the edge of a pool, looking at another who is inside. But yes, with a refined technique that delves into the details and a palette of bright and strong colors. It is the most characteristic work of the author, who at 85 lives happily in his native England. Rabbit. Artwork by Jeff Koons, from the year 1986. In May 2019, it was sold at auction in New York for $91.1 million, making it the most expensive work to date sold by a living artist at auction. The measurements of the sculpture are 104.1 centimeters high by 48.3 centimeters wide, and it is made of brilliant stainless steel, made in 1986. The image and likeness of an inflatable and silver rabbit, on the that some have called an apotheosis of contemporary minimalism and an icon of 20th century art. The buyer, by the way, is the collector Stephen Cohen. Happy Woman. Work of art by Roy Lichtenstein, from the year 1994. This late work by the pop art master, painted in 1994, sold for $46.2 million in an online auction, reaching the sales record for the most expensive work of art of the year 2020. With his famous Nude S series from the mid-1990s, Roy Lichtenstein's career came full circle. His 20 paintings saw him return to the comic book heroines who helped propel him to fame, and to the forefront of the pop art movement in the early 1960s. Exchange. Work of art by Willem de Kooning, from the year 1955. This painting was made in 1955 and is part of the abstract expressionism style. It is an oil on canvas, and for many years, it was the most expensive sale in the history of art. Well, the whopping amount of $300 million was paid for it in 2015, and it was acquired by a private buyer who, we suppose, did not know what to do with so much money. Kooning admired Van Gogh, with whom he shared the country of birth, and had the archetypal life of a punished artist, alcoholic but with style, of those who listen to jazz and drink martinis with a studied cigarette in his mouth. The work defies the limits between abstraction and figuration, making that characteristic gestural painting. He died in the year 1997, without knowing the madness that he came to pay for his work of art.